Vera stared at Max in amazement. What a meeting! Wow, not seeing each other for more than a year and running into each other under these circumstances. You can't do it on purpose. Max hadn't noticed his ex-wife yet, though. He was in a circle of friends, dressed up, a little pompous, with an expression of obvious complacency on his face. Vera had never noticed before how ridiculous and unpleasant Max looked. She thought he was very smart and confident. Respect itself is a good quality. However, this man seemed to have only respect for his own person. Andrei caught Vera's eye and looked at her questioningly. I think that's it. Yes, that's him. The woman nodded with a small smile. Why don't we get out of here? Why? Vera was genuinely surprised. I like it here. Everything is fine. Well, look how you know. Andrei patted Vera on the shoulder reassuringly. His touch always soothed and relaxed a woman. This time, too. How lucky they were to have met. Otherwise, Vera would still be completely sure that all men are like her ex-husband. And Max at this moment, just with an intelligent look, was telling something to the people sitting next to him. He looked very much like a puffed-up turkey. Vera knew some of the people at the table. Max's two best friends were here with their wives. Vera never particularly liked the company of these people. She didn't even know what to talk to them about. They had no common interests, no common ground. The other half of Max's friends were discussing recipes, country affairs, some stores, phone models. Vera could not support these topics and did not want to. The companions of Max's friends seemed to her somehow insincere, unfriendly, unreal, and limited. That's why Vera felt superfluous in the company and hoped that the boring and tedious evening with friends would soon end. At home, she usually listened to her husband accuse her of being uncommunicative. You sit like a mentally retarded person, you can't say a word. Shame on you for being so wild. Vera also felt guilty. She even apologized. She thought Max was right. She's a bad wife. She must be stupid, too, if she can't even talk to people. Faith. She just hadn't had any experience with men before. That's probably why she didn't immediately see what kind of person her husband was. Max took it with a rush, self-confidence, created an image of a successful, smart person behind whom the wife will be like a stone wall. So the then very young Vera lost her head, and after a while she was already sorry and afraid to ruin this relationship. Vera grew up without a father. He and his mother lived in a small one-room apartment in a house on the outskirts of the city. The area was not very prestigious and prosperous, but right outside the window stretched a wonderful wasteland. Huge, overgrown with tall grass, riddled with wide paths. Beyond the wasteland, there was a bypass road, along which huge trucks raced. Sometimes Vera just sat on the wide windowsill and watched the cars, the occasional passerby hurrying through the wasteland, the kids flying kites. And what fantastic sunsets and sunrises the girl saw from the window of their only room with her mother. It was breathtaking. Vera then tried to draw it, but nothing came of it. Apparently, fate has deprived her of artistic talents. Vera's childhood was by no means financially prosperous. Her mother worked at a local school as a primary school teacher, devoted herself to work, but teachers were paid little in those days, and these pennies were often delayed. My mother often had to intercept her neighbors' paychecks. It happened that for several days in a row a small family sat on pasta and bread, but my mother also came up with something interesting. Then, he will make a kind of pie out of vermicelli and a couple of eggs, then he will bake salty and delicious tortillas out of flour. Vera knew that they didn't have much money, so she never asked for expensive gifts. But sometimes my mother would take my daughter to the market on the other side of town, and they would pick out new clothes. They were cheap, but very nice things. Vera's mother had excellent taste. She always bought things that were incredibly becoming to her daughter. Vera also had a lot of friends and girlfriends in the yard. With what impatience this gang looked forward to the holidays, especially in the summer. After all, these are games from morning to night on a vacant lot, and gatherings at each other's houses, and endless adventures. Sometimes Vera and the other children from her yard went to the movies or to the local amusement park. However, not as often as I would like, because all the guys were from the same families as Vera. Give or take, everyone didn't have much money back then. But it didn't stop anyone from enjoying their childhood. Mom even managed to arrange birthday parties for her daughter on a meager salary. She set the table, baked the cake herself, made her own mind-blowing cutlets with mashed potatoes, cut fruit. How great it was! Vera often recalled her childhood with warmth and nostalgia. A sunny, happy, carefree time. Vera did not remember worrying about the absence of her father in her life. First of all, she wasn't the only one in their group. Her best friend Svetka was also raised by her mother alone. And the neighbor in the stairwell, Petka, also grew up. And many others. Secondly, my mother told me that my father drank. That's why they divorced before Vera was even 3 years old. The girl also knew what a drinker was. The example of the neighbors from the top floor was always before my eyes. Uncle Mitya got drunk and made ugly scandals for the family. Screams, curses, the sound of falling furniture, the crying of babies who had to live in it all. No, thank you. I shouldn't have been so happy. My father didn't seem to show up at first after the divorce. I walked with my daughter, even paid tiny alimony. But then, he started a new family, and the parent, forgetting about the eldest, went to permanent residence in some remote village. I haven't heard from him since. Alimony payments, of course, stopped. The new kids needed money, too. My mother did not regret it, even in the most difficult times. We may be poor, but we live in peace, she said. And it's worth a lot, believe me. And the daughter implicitly believed her mother. Moreover, Vera did not think that she lived in such poverty. Everything was fine with her. Yes, Vera didn't have a father. But her mother got the most wonderful, kind, sensitive, understanding. Mom never scolded her daughter for wrongdoing. No. The woman sat the girl down in front of her and had long conversations with her. They always made Vera feel better and her head clear. The girl understood a lot in the process of such conversations, and the next time she tried to behave correctly. Vera appreciated this attitude of her mother. After all, the girl perfectly saw how other adult neighbors raised children. At Svetka, my mother sometimes screamed so that the window shook, and Petka was sometimes flogged. And he, anticipating the punishment, even sometimes did not want to go home. No, Vera and her mother had a completely different relationship. The mother supported her daughter in everything. And I never scolded her, for example, for her grades. Vera studied at the secondary level. At school, she was pretty, thanks to her innate diligence and diligence. She didn't even dream of getting A's. She didn't get school subjects so easily. But her mother was not so ambitious as to push her daughter and demand a gold medal from her, like other parents of the teacher. No, Vera grew and developed in a psychologically comfortable environment. But in the 5th grade, it turned out that the average inconspicuous girl Vera also has her own talent. She showed an aptitude for foreign languages. In the 5th grade, English started. And it immediately became clear that Vera easily assimilates the material. Both words are easy to remember, and complex constructions are unmistakably built. The girl somehow intuitively felt the language and easily understood its basics. She even started learning French from self-help books for the sake of interest. And she was doing just fine. Mom was proud of her daughter's success and supported her. There was not enough money, but the parents still found funds for foreign language courses at the Center for Adolescent Development. Vera just fell in love with this place. She liked everything about this wonderful school: the atmosphere, the friendly teachers, and the other students who were just as enthusiastic as she was. Vera was making rapid progress. In the 9th grade, she already knew exactly where she would go after school. Faculty of Foreign Languages at a local university. The girl saw no other way for herself. The mother supported her daughter in this as well. At least take pity on your mother, complained Aunt Luba, a neighbor, Svita's mother. It's been dragging you down all your life. Go to college, learn to be a dressmaker or cook. The profession will be in your hands. You'll start earning money in 3 years. Everything is easier for mothers. And then 2 more years at school, then 5 more years at university, and then 7 more years on my mother's neck. It's crazy. Luba, what are you saying? Vera's mother, who happened to overhear this conversation, threw up her hands. This is her future. She's a natural translator. 7 years is nothing. Will fly by unnoticed. Well, it's up to you. Svetka, Lubin's aunt and Vera's best friend, entered the technical school to become a pastry chef. And indeed, 3 years later, she was already earning good money in the shop. Vera was still just a freshman at the time. Svetka began to dress up beautifully, go out with new friends and girlfriends in clubs, and put on bright makeup. At first, she invited Vera with her, but where is that pre-adult and independent friend? First of all, there is no money for all these parties. Secondly, studying at the university takes a lot of time. Well, somehow it turned out that the paths of childhood friends parted. But Vera was not discouraged. She had her own bright and busy life. At the university, she liked everything. The girl was happy when she found out that she was still enrolled on the budget. And my mother was so happy. "I always believed in you," my mother said on that memorable evening when the results of the entrance tests were announced. The woman in joy even set a table for herself and her daughter. "I had no doubt that you would succeed." Still, I was worried, of course. But now I see that I shouldn't have worried. Come on, my daughter, learn, try. Now your future is in your hands. Everything will work out for you. You're a good girl. And Vera tried. She studied with pleasure. Vera was never an excellent student at school, and then suddenly she became the best student of the course. And even her scholarship was increased, which turned out to be quite useful. All the same, of course, a penny, but at least for the trip to the university for a month was enough. Professor and Dean of the faculty Pyotr Sergeyevich taught linguistics at Vera's school. He was already a very old man, thin, with an elegant streak of gray in his hair, always immaculately dressed, no jeans or t-shirts, like young teachers, only snow-white shirts, trousers with arrows, vests and jackets. And that was his special charm. Pyotr Sergeyevich was very passionate about his subject. It was striking and attractive. At his lectures, students sat quietly, watching the professor with burning eyes, hanging on his every word. Pyotr Sergeyevich's couples flew by like a flash. Accordingly, his academic performance was the highest. You didn't even have to prepare for the exams in his subjects. The material miraculously somehow fit itself into the students' heads. Some kind of magic. It was at Pyotr Sergeyevich that Vera eventually wrote her final thesis. It was her favorite teacher, so she was glad that he had taken her in. And the professor himself clearly had a warm attitude towards the talented student. "You have a special gift. You feel the language well," Pyotr Sergeyevich told Vera more than once. "You have a great future ahead of you." It so happened that in the process of working on the diploma, the professor and the student became close. Imperceptibly, conversations shifted to personal topics, and there was no escaping that. So Vera found out that Pyotr Sergeyevich has a wife and a beloved dog, Nada. But God did not give them children. But the professor practically raised his nephew, the son of his sister. His father died early, so his uncle replaced the boy's parent. It was Pyotr Sergeyevich who helped Vera with her first job. He recommended her to some friends from the travel agency. The girl was very grateful to him for this. After all, she understood how difficult it was to find a job for someone without experience and connections. And here everything was so wonderfully decided. "These friends of mine will thank me again and again for you." Pyotr Sergeyevich smiled warmly in response to Vera's words of gratitude. And the girl began a completely different life. First of all, she now had money in her hands, her own money, and not just a few pennies like a scholarship. Having received the first salary, Vera was taken aback by surprise. This amount was almost 3 times her mother's salary. The girl immediately bought delicious food for the table, decided to arrange a festive evening. And I also chose a beautiful dress for my mother in the store. She knew that her mother had been dreaming about this for a long time. Mom even burst into tears of joy for her daughter. And Vera's gift to her, of course, I was very moved. So the moment has come when I can finally say that all this was not in vain. That was the toast my mother made that night. There was no doubt in my mind. But still, I didn't think that your fate would turn out so well from the very beginning. Now, by the way, you can finally think about your personal life. Personal life. This moment Vera somehow ignored all the time. Vera was a very pretty girl, and she knew it very well. Wheat-colored hair just below the shoulders, large brown eyes, dark eyebrows spread wide, slender, long-legged, tall. Vera often caught the interested glances of guys and men. But she was well aware that it was too early for her to enter into a relationship with anyone. First, you need to finish your studies and get back on your feet. And she has never lost her head from anyone in all these years, so that she doesn't care about her life plans and completely plunge into her feelings. Vera just wanted to be successful on her own first, get a profession, become independent, and then the rest. Before Vera's eyes was the example of her friend Svetka. She got married almost immediately after graduating from college, got pregnant by another boyfriend, and had to sign her name. And the guy, just like Svetka, has no yard. He's just as young, but he's also a country boy. Naturally, the couple settled in the apartment of Svetlana's mother. There are more scandals and skirmishes, less peace and space. And then Svetka also had 3 daughters, born one after the other. Aunt Luba, Sveta's mother, greeted the arrival of each granddaughter not with joy, but rather with annoyance. Where do they breed like rabbits? She complained about the wayward young neighbors. In Kopecks, in the 6th we already live, we sit on each other's heads. Svetka doesn't need to work, she gives birth every year. And this goose of hers is no better. He's always looking for himself, but he can't find it. No, Vera wanted something completely different for herself. She saw a different future. A smart and kind husband who loves his wife and cares about her. 2 children, a boy and a girl. Separate spacious apartment with a good repair. Vera knew that this would be the case now. Good education, a prestigious job, a solid salary. The girl had already opened a bank account and transferred money there every month, saving up for a dream of a separate home. Vera, who has never seen the sea in her life, managed to visit Krasnodar, Turkey, and Spain in just a couple of years. After all, she worked in a travel agency, so it was not difficult for her to buy last-minute packages at a favorable price. The girl and her mother took to the resorts with her. It was such a joy to realize that you are fulfilling the cherished dream of a loved one. After all, Vera's mother, having lived to a respectable age, saw the sea for the first time. Then these memories warmed Vera's soul. She was glad that she had managed to make her mother happy, had managed to show her a piece of the world. But with Vera's personal life, somehow everything did not work out. Well, she didn't know how to deal with men. She had no such experience. At school, Vera was not particularly interested in boys. It was still small. No, of course, many of her peers were already friends with the guys, but Vera had a late burning in this plan. At the university, it so happened that there were almost no guys in the course. Girls' department. Even if they were, Vera was then focused on studying, own a career. She had no time for romances. Well, then Vera simply began to be afraid of men. Some of them are all incomprehensible, noisy, strong. How do I communicate with them? Who knows? Of course, men paid attention to Vera from time to time. But Vera was afraid, and shy. And she did everything possible to make the next fan leave her behind as soon as possible. The girl understood that such a situation was abnormal. She was already going to see a psychologist to look for and work out injuries that interfere with the establishment of a personal life. But then Max came into her life. A handsome, well-groomed man. Stylishly and expensively dressed, tall, athletic, with impeccable manners. An obvious regular at the gym, but not an overinflated mountain of muscle. Springy light gait, mesmerizing smile. He came to their travel agency for work several times and always greeted Vera with a particularly friendly greeting. The girl caught his eyes on her and was immediately embarrassed. I scolded myself for being shy, but I couldn't help it. And once they ran into each other, not at work, but just on the street. Vera still didn't know if it was an accident or if Max had arranged this supposedly unexpected meeting. And it doesn't matter now. Vera came out of the bookstore and bumped into Max in the doorway. He smiled to let her pass, then greeted her affably. Vera responded to his greeting with embarrassment, feeling the hammers start pounding in her ears and a crowd of goosebumps rush down her spine. That's the effect, Max would say to her. We met and met. It happens. Vera went on, but Max caught up with her in a couple of minutes. At first, he just walked beside her in silence. Vera didn't know how to react, and he even seemed to enjoy her confusion a little. You're so cute when you're embarrassed, finally said the guy. And anyway, you are a very, very beautiful and modest girl. I've never seen one like it before. Thank you. Vera stammered. The compliment turned her head. Yes, she'd noticed that Max looked at her in a special way, but she'd never expected him to tell her he liked her like that. So what's next? And then Maxa took all the initiative into his own hands. Vera did not even notice how she stopped being embarrassed. They just walked around town with Max and talked about everything like old buddies. He was such a great conversationalist. Max seemed to be able to support any topic. It turned out that he works as a department head at a gas plant. They have been cooperating with their travel agency for a long time, buying wholesale vouchers for particularly distinguished employees. As a reward for conscientious work, it was on these matters that Max periodically visited the head of Vera. Max lives alone in his own apartment, and most importantly, he is not in a relationship right now, but he is very much looking for them. Since childhood, I have dreamed of meeting a modest, gentle, beautiful girl, Max confided to Vera. Since childhood, I have an ideal, Cinderella from the Disney cartoon. I thought that such things don't happen anymore. But then I met you, and I think that's exactly what you are. Vera then melted from his compliments and, as it seemed to her then, pleasant comparisons. Only later did she realize that Cinderella is not the happiest and most self-sufficient character. She lived, worked, endured, worked hard, and showed no complaints. Yes, indeed, just such a wife was needed to Max. He didn't even hide it. Vera was simply too naive and inexperienced to understand everything at once. Young people began to meet. Max said Severia was the safe wall she'd always wanted. He knew exactly where they should go, to the cinema or to a restaurant, completely organized their leisure time, gave Vera gifts, surrounded her with care and attention. The girl liked it then. Finally, she didn't have to decide anything. It's so nice to feel like someone else is responsible for you. And Max was happy to take responsibility for Vera. The man picked her up at the office every night after work. They would have dinner at a restaurant and then take a long walk around the city. Sometimes we went to the movies, sometimes to the bowling alley. From time to time, the couple met up with Max's friends. Lara smiled at these people, but unfortunately, she couldn't find a common language with their other halves. Therefore, these joint gatherings made Vera uncomfortable, although she tried not to show it to Max. She wanted him to feel only positive emotions around her. The girl in general often adapted to it. She didn't always like the films he chose, but Vera showed complete delight. In the cafe, the girl also ordered exactly what her companion advised, and so on in everything. Max, after all, he has repeatedly said that Vera is the girl of his dreams. He called it unearthly, unique, and one of a kind. And Vera simply didn't want to disappoint him. And then, after about a year of constant meetings and dating, Max proposed to Vera. It was completely unexpected, but in accordance with all the rules of the genre, in a restaurant, to romantic music, with falling on the bottom of the knee and presenting a velvet red box with a ring. Vera then covered her face with her hands and laughed. She felt happy and protected. Her dream had come true. Now she will have a strong, friendly family, a kind, wealthy husband, a favorite job, and a good salary already available. Well, wow! Just as she had once imagined. Was this really happening to her? Of course, Vera agreed. Otherwise it couldn't have happened. And then I met Max's parents. Vera was a little worried about how they would take her. Still, they are quite wealthy people, and she comes from a poor and even incomplete family. But everything went great. Max's mother and father fully approved and shared his son's choice. They seemed to like Vera very much. Max, I've told us so much about you. My future mother-in-law was smiling. Now we can see that he was right in his assessment. You're really great. But Vera's mother was immediately suspicious of Max. The girl immediately understood this from her looks and facial expressions. It's up to you, of course. The woman shared her opinion when Max left. But I think it's a little too weird. I don't know what word to use here. Cocky, or something. Isn't he putting too much pressure on you? Vera hugged her mother tightly. He's the most wonderful person in the world. God grant it may be so. Vera thought then that her mother was just a little jealous. Well, for so many years they lived together, soul to soul, and then suddenly my daughter begins her own separate life. After the wedding, Vera moved into Max's apartment. Spacious, expensively furnished apartment in the city center. It's a wonderful place. The girl tried to please her husband. The family nest was kept absolutely clean. Max never seemed to make any comments to his new wife, but when he noticed the mess, he involuntarily winced. And Vera tried not to allow such situations. Max was a smart guy himself, and he expected the same from others. With children, the newlyweds decided not to delay. It was Max's wish. He really wanted a son, an heir, as he said. Vera, for some reason, was afraid that the child would not work out right away. At work, I heard a lot of stories from colleagues that it is not so easy to give birth to a healthy and strong baby now. Many are treated for years before getting pregnant. And Vera, oh, how she didn't want to disappoint her husband. He liked it when everything went according to plan. Any deviation from the course irritated this organized man in every sense. But in vain Vera worried. Just a couple of months after the wedding, she happily announced to her husband that she was expecting a child. Max smiled so happily that his wife's heart warmed. She thought that their child would have the most caring and loving father. Not like her own. The pregnancy wasn't very easy. From the very beginning, Vera was tormented by a terrible toxicosis. Sometimes she couldn't even get out of bed to go to work. To her surprise, Vera noticed that Max was annoyed by this. Of course, he tried very hard, took care of his wife, ran around at night to get medicine for nausea, took his wife to all the ultrasounds and examinations, even cooked sometimes. But too often the man remembered the strong Russian women who gave birth in the field and nothing, and, even worse, cited as an example to Vera the wives of friends who did not notice pregnancy. It was a shame. But Vera was silent. She didn't want to fight with her husband. One of the routine examinations revealed the reason for Vera's poor health. It turned out that she carries under her heart not one, but two babies at once, twins, or rather twins. Hence the weakness, nausea, and other charms. Hearing this news, Vera almost fell off the couch where she was lying while the ultrasound technician ran the sensor over her still flat stomach. First surprise, then joy, a warm wave flooded the heart of the future mother. Max, who was present at the event, looked somewhat confused. "Is there at least one boy in there? What is it?" he asked. "No, Dad, it's too early to talk about such things." "And what's the difference?" "The main thing is that children are healthy and develop correctly." Max fanatically dreamed of a son, an heir. He often talked about how he would take him fishing, how he would teach him to swim, how to ride a bicycle. "I plan to send my child to fight because the male character is tempered only in sports." Vera was even afraid that at the next ultrasound they would be happy with girls. Max would definitely be upset and probably blame her, Vera. Yes, recently Max began to express complaints about his wife. And she doesn't cook like that, and she doesn't clean too carefully. But it's in a bad mood. As it was, he still cared about Vera, still gave her compliments, and Vera tried not to upset him once again and desperately hoped that at least one of their little ones would turn out to be a boy. She didn't really care. She already loved both children unconditionally. It soon became clear that Vera is carrying the so-called royal twins, a boy and a girl. So much for the gift of fate. Max was pleased. The heir, that is. Vera also calmed down about this. "My stomach was growing faster than I could lift it by the hour." Vera was already having a very hard time not just walking, but moving at all, and Max, as luck would have it, disappeared at work for days on end. I also went on business trips all the time. He called his wife every day, inquired about her health, complained that he could not be there, and immediately assured her that he was trying just for her and for the children. "I don't want our family to need anything," he said. "I need my children to have the best of everything." Vera, as always, agreed with her husband, recognized the correctness of his judgments. But she still wanted Max to be there for her. Vera needed help so badly. Well, at least Mom didn't leave her daughter in a difficult situation. She went shopping for her and accompanied her to the hospital. And then the babies were born. A little early, as is often the case with twins. A boy and a girl. Stepan and Arina. Loud, curious, and fast. And it spun. Vera now devoted all her time to her children. Swaddling, motion sickness, feeding, washing, walking, bathing. Max helped whenever possible. But he was tired at work. Vera tried not to burden him too much with household chores. "I managed it all by myself." The kids' screams, especially when they woke up at night, clearly annoyed Max. Vera saw it. She was a little hurt, but she tried to take her husband's side. Yes, as a young mother with two babies in her arms, she is very tired. But it doesn't make it any easier for Max. He is responsible for the financial well-being of the family. He has the right to rest and peace of mind in his own home. And Vera tried her best to provide her husband with this very peace of mind. As time passed, the kids grew up, Vera felt better. Still, there were many things she didn't notice about taking care of the children. Max was moving away. Now he didn't show up at home for days and weeks, citing work. Now he has business trips, then business dinners, then some important trips and meetings. Vera did not go into details, she was not up to it. And my mother, Mom, who at first so often helped her daughter with her grandchildren, somehow suddenly passed. Vera didn't notice this at first. Her mother's faded eyes, her frequent migraines, and her endless tiredness, preoccupied with her own problems, Vera simply ignored all this. Two kids at once, this is not a joke. 3 years passed quickly. Arina and Stepan have grown up. Vera decided that it was time to send the children to kindergarten and to return to her favorite work. Yes, the time of the decree, it is special. It is very pleasant to devote all your time to your children, family, and home. The apartment shines with cleanliness, delicious dishes are waiting for the household every day, but Vera really wanted to go back to the office. Dress stylishly, apply makeup, communicate with colleagues, and do your favorite thing, translations. And their money will not be superfluous, obviously. Vera hoped that when she went out to work, Max would look at her differently again, and there would be interest in his eyes again. And now, finally, the job is done. The kids are attached to the garden. Vera is back in the office. At first the woman enjoyed her new life. Work pleased and inspired, communication inspired. But this wonderful period lasted for an offensively short time. Children. The children began to cheer in the garden one after another. Now Arina would start coughing. Now Styapka would suddenly have a fever. Vera got a call from the kindergarten straight to work and asked to take the twins home. The woman asked to go to the authorities, broke down, and went for her son and daughter. This was followed by a minimum of 2 weeks sick leave, during which the young mother was replaced by someone. Lara was uncomfortable in front of her colleagues and boss, but where to go? Max could not leave his job. He remained the main breadwinner of the family. And my mother. She'd been a little too weak and tired lately. Vera knew that her mother often went to the doctor and took care of her own health. Vera's conscience did not allow her to put two small, constantly ill children on her shoulders, even though she knew that her grandmother adored grandchildren. In-laws are also not an option. They lived their own interesting and rich lives, and the twins were almost never mentioned. Only happy birthday they were congratulated. Well, they had every right. It seemed that it would take a little time, and the children would adapt, stop catching colds, and everything would go back to normal. But no. Endless illnesses did not leave the twins. The pediatrician just threw up her hands. Well, there is such a thing as non-kindergarten children. Preschool isn't suitable for everyone, but yours is. They are also premature. The immune system probably hasn't matured yet. What should I do? What is it? The distraught mother asked. She was once again replaced at work for a long time by a young colleague. And this girl's voice on the phone sounded really tired today. Well, of course, it's not easy to carry dissections on yourself at once. Vera felt guilty both in front of her colleagues and in front of her children. Well, what are you going to do? The doctor shrugged. The only way out is to pick up the children from the kindergarten. Frequent illnesses are not the best tactic. They're already having complications. At the family council, Vera discussed the situation with her husband. The doctor says that children should not go to kindergarten, the woman said with sadness in her voice, looking at her husband. That's weird. In my time, this was not the case with children. All this is the result of overprotection in the first months and years of life. You wrapped them up like cabbage, didn't let the children get tough. They were born prematurely and weak, Vera reminded. There was no other way to deal with them then. You're just a mother hen. So how are we going to get out of this situation? I thought I should take a nanny. Vera shared her thoughts. A babysitter. Max's lip curled in disdain. My children will be raised by a strange woman who will be constantly at our home. Not all the time, just during my work hours. No, Max said firmly, I won't allow anyone else to see my children. And it is not particularly economically profitable. Your salary won't be enough to pay for a qualified professional babysitter, and we don't need any more. Therefore, it is better to stay at home and take care of the children. This is the only correct decision." Vera tried to object. She tried to convey to her husband how important work is for her. It is not just a way to earn money, but also a field for implementation, communication with interesting people. But Max was adamant. He absolutely objected against the nanny and insisted that his wife settle down at home. Remember how good it was when you were on maternity leave. Cleanliness, the children were cheerful and calm. The house always smelled of delicious food. What about now? Quit, don't even think about it. Still, someone needs to sit with the children. It's not my place to leave a post. And Vera had to accept this decision. Max was pushing her. However, this was always the case, even when it came to their relationship. Vera constantly adjusted to his opinion. At first, she herself tried to please her beloved person and therefore gave in to him in everything. And then, when I tried to express my own opinion, which was different from my spouse's, I faced his powerful pressure. Max brooked no objections and demanded complete obedience from Vera. What had once seemed like a solid stone wall turned out to be just a cage or trap with no way out. It was hard for Vera to quit her favorite job. Colleagues tried to persuade her to stay, offered different options for arranging children, a private garden, a nanny. But the woman knew perfectly well that Max would not agree with any arguments. He made his opinion clear, and only it had the right to exist. After working for the prescribed 2 weeks, Vera returned home in a depressed mood. She felt that she had made the wrong choice. And once again, everyday life with children began to flow. Just like always. Laundry, cleaning, cooking, educational activities. The kids have grown up, it's time for sections. Vera sent the twins to figure skating in the hope that they would be hardened by the ice, become healthier and stronger. And then she'd be back at work again. However, it is unlikely to be possible to get a job in the same place. A person has already been hired for her position, so there is nowhere to go back. But you can also find another option. Time passed. My relationship with Max has completely soured. He no longer saw his wife as the other half, the woman he loved. She was his nanny, cook, laundress, cleaning lady, service staff, nothing more. Max hardly spoke to his wife, and if he paid any attention to her, it was only to reproach her for something else. Vera tried to reach out to her husband. She spoke directly to him about her feelings and desires. This is what famous psychologists advise you to do, to voice what is in your heart, to be sincere with the other half. But Max didn't seem at all interested in his wife's inner world and feelings. "What can I even talk about with you?" He would grin. About frying pans, recipes, and achievements of children. Who would be interested in talking to Klushka at all? These words cut Vera to the heart. Once she was the best student of the course, then a sought-after specialist, and now she is forced to deal with children, and her husband considers her a limited mother hen. However, in many ways he is right. Vera suspected that Max had a mistress. Too often he was late at work, and sometimes he did not come to spend the night at all, citing his busy schedule. "What did you want? I'm the only one who provides for my family. Just imagine the responsibility I have on my shoulders. This is not for children to wipe their snot and cook borscht. I work a lot, so I'm late." This is how Max responded when Vera tried to convey to him that he needed to spend more time with his family. Children needed not only the attention of their mother, but also communication with their father. But Max, he seems to have lost interest in the twins altogether. It was then that this man fanatically dreamed of a son. And now, when growing up Styopka was so drawn to his beloved daddy, Max completely stopped paying attention to his own children. It was as if he was no longer interested in them. "I've had enough of this. And then there's my mom." Vera was increasingly concerned about her state of health. "My mother has lost weight, looked haggard, and it's the endless sadness in her eyes." The woman tried to hide this sadness behind a smile. When she came to visit her daughter and grandchildren, she behaved as if nothing had happened. But Vera saw it. It was impossible to ignore it now. "And my mother went to the hospital too often. She'd never done that before." Vera tried to ask her mother about what was going on, but she always calmed her down. "My age is already up. What do you want?" My mother smiled, stroking Vera's hair as she had when she was a child. Next to her, the grown-up mother of two felt loved and happy again. pressure, and other age-related sores. Don't pay any attention, it's fine. But nothing was normal. One morning, Vera received a phone call from a neighbor saying that her mother had been taken by ambulance to the regional hospital during the night. An icy hand of fear gripped Vera's heart. The woman grabbed the children, who had no one to leave them with, and rushed to the very hospital. Her heart was pounding all the way, and she had never felt such fear for the person she loved before. Vera scolded herself for believing her mother implicitly. It was more convenient for her to assume that her own person was really doing well. First, it is calmer at heart, and secondly, you do not need to do anything. Vera had enough worries with the children, as it was. And now my mother was taken away by ambulance. But perhaps it could have been prevented. Vera left the children with a young nurse, who agreed to look after them. She seemed to like babies in general. A kind, open face, a sweet smile. At that time, Vera didn't really care who she left her children with. She was looking for her mother. She wanted to look into her own eyes, to hear the voice she loved, but it didn't work. Vera found her mother's attending physician. It turned out to be an oncologist. What a surprise! It turned out that the mother has long progressed insidious and incurable disease. The fact that nothing could be done about it was immediately clear. For several years now, doctors have been prolonging the fading life as best they could. Vera's mother took strong drugs, knowing perfectly well that this was not a treatment, but only a delay. I didn't tell my daughter anything. I'm sure I didn't want to upset you. But we are not gods, the doctor said. Yesterday, your mother came to us in a serious condition. The disease took its toll, as originally expected. She's in intensive care. There's no chance at all. It's only a matter of hours. I can see her. Large tears were running down Vera's cheeks. What she was so afraid of has happened. Soon the most beloved and dear person will be gone, and nothing can be done about it. But Vera, she suddenly realized that a miracle was still waiting for her. Anything can happen. When such a huge disaster falls on you, even suddenly, the consciousness resists and looks for a way out of the situation. Only your mother can take a look at it. She's in a coma. She sees nothing, hears nothing, feels nothing. But Vera still went to the ward to my mother. It was unbearable to see a loved one in such a state. Vera held her mother's hand and gradually became aware of what was happening. Mom looked like she was sleeping. Serene face, tightly closed eyelids. Vera suddenly thought that she couldn't remember if she'd ever seen her mother sleep. She usually always woke up before her daughter and fell asleep, of course, also after Vera. The doctor wasn't wrong. Verina's mother died the same day. Just a couple of hours after her inconsolable daughter left the hospital, Vera received a phone call with news that she wasn't ready for yet. We must pay tribute to Max. He supported his wife in a terrible moment for her. He organized a farewell party, took the children to his parents, as Vera could not look after them. The woman was very grateful to her husband for all this. Vera didn't want anything. Nothing interested her. Even the children didn't matter to her for a while. The woman felt that she was now alone in the whole wide world. Yes, it is one, despite the presence of children and a husband. Max, he is a complete stranger, cold, always dissatisfied, and judgmental. Children are still very young, and Faith is one against the whole cold and cruel world. But life went on as usual. Vera had to pull herself together and gradually return to the usual chores. Chores on the farm distracted from heavy thoughts. The twins were happy again. Max was still the same. Nothing has changed. Cold, contemptuous, picking on his wife for small things. And very, very far away, completely alien. Vera especially wanted to feel supported and cared for in this difficult year after her mother's departure. She was constantly freezing, even in hot weather. She simply did not have enough human warmth, which her mother gave her daughter, even when she was far away. Only now did Vera understand this clearly. But Mom's gone. Vera is all alone in the whole wide world. It was frightening, depressing, and sometimes even panicked. It was in the same difficult year for herself that Vera found out that her husband really has a mistress. She had previously suspected her husband's connections on the side, but Max. Now he seems to have completely stopped hiding. Once a man left his mobile phone right on the coffee table, and his passion just sent him a message. Vera, of course, would never have reached into her husband's phone, but a very interesting photo was displayed on the screen. Beautiful blonde in bright scarlet underwear. Vera looked at the message. A certain Elena shouted behind the main letters that she incredibly missed Max and was waiting for the continuation of yesterday's adventure. Vera thought about it. Just yesterday, her husband allegedly spent the night in the office again as he finished his report very late. It turns out that the man was not poring over documents, but was experiencing adventures. Vera flipped through her husband's correspondence with the leggy beauty. Yes, there was no doubt about it. This is Elena and her husband, lovers, and for a long time. Vera replaced the phone. Was she in pain at that moment? Probably not. Max had long been estranged, and Vera was well aware that he had someone. True, she believed that they were different girls, casual relationships. But it turned out that Elena and her husband have a long-standing and already serious relationship. So Vera was practically not upset. Only somehow I felt sick to my heart. Well, the faint hope that relations with Max will ever get better completely evaporated. Even for the sake of her children, she wouldn't put up with such a person around. What should I do? What should I do? Vera understood that she was very vulnerable in her position. She has 2 6-year-old children on her hands and no income at all. But she will think about how to improve her life later. And now you need to talk to your spouse for clarity. There are too many lies in their relationship. Maybe after a frank conversation, my soul will become at least a little cleaner. Max came out of the bathroom, settled on the couch in front of the TV, and picked up his phone. As usual, he didn't notice Vera, who was sitting right next to him. The husband was absorbed in reading the messages. Vera watched his face carefully. What emotions will flash across it? But there were no feelings. With a calm expression, the man was reading the young mistress' message. Say hi to Elena. Vera couldn't stand it. She wanted to see some reaction from her husband. Max looked at her in surprise. So you are. You know that, don't you? And all this in a matter-of-fact, completely calm tone, as if having a mistress with the head of the family is a common thing. I know, Vera nodded. By the way, she's cute. Did you go through my phone? Max managed to behave in such a way that Vera also felt guilty. Yeah, I always knew you had the brains of a hamster, but at least I thought you were honest. Vera took a deep breath. Max, after all he's done, still dares to reproach her for dishonesty. What a conceit a person has. Well, yes, I have a girlfriend, the husband did not deny. And she's really beautiful, taking care of herself, not like you. Trying to please and surprise me. And you have nothing but saucepans and baby sewers in your head. I can't do this. It's all. Max didn't try to deny it. He honestly and sincerely told Vera that she was an uninteresting, limited person, next to whom it was stuffy. This was particularly hurtful. That's right. It was our common decision that I become a housewife and take care of the children. Vera almost cried. But you've turned into a bug, an ordinary mother hen. I got fat and stupid. With you, it's impossible to be around you. Vera looked at Max and understood that, yes, for him everything that happens is normal. He has a beautiful girlfriend for a romantic relationship and a fun time, and a wife is waiting at home. Let plump and stupid, but providing comfort and obedient. It's beautiful, isn't it? Only now Vera suddenly realized that this role did not suit her at all. Me. I can't stay with you, the woman said. The words were out of her mouth before she could think them through. But then Vera realized that it was true. Max looked at his wife questioningly. It looked like he was really curious about her opinion. For the first time in many years. And I'm leaving you. With children, of course. We're getting a divorce, Vera said calmly. The decision quickly formed in her mind. She wasn't usually so bold, but here. And where did that just come from? Vera knew that she couldn't stay with Max, that she just couldn't. Otherwise, he will soon lose himself completely, and this cannot be allowed. Max laughed at her comment. It was obvious that he was really amused. What are you talking about, chicken? Max said, stifling a fit of unpleasant laughter. Where are you going? To my mother's apartment, the woman said confidently. Don't worry, we have somewhere to live. What do you think you're talking about? From such conditions with 2 children in Otnushku, it's much better than living in a lie and the cold, Vera sighed. Right now, she was thinking through all the problems she would have to face. Lack of money, tightness, adaptation of twins to new conditions, and a lot more. But at the same time, the woman understood that the decision she had made was the only right one. She couldn't stay near Max. "Are you really going to leave me with the kids?" openly amused Max. His contempt and disbelief in the strength of his wife, all this hurt Vera, made her doubt. "You who haven't earned a penny in the last 6 years. You who believe that money is taken on the card at the wave of a magic wand. You who have no idea about all things like utility bills. When was the last time you paid your rent or called a plumber, for example, or a gas man? You who only knows what the kitchen and children are." Every word Max said was like a whip to Vera. Yes, her husband was deliberately trying to hurt her, but in many ways he was right. That's the worst part. Vera really didn't work for a long time, and she didn't touch any bills. Max paid for everything. He also solved problems related to repairs, utility bills, loans, mortgages. Faith. She really did fall out of my life. Her mistake was that the woman was too focused on the children, forgetting about herself. These works gave their result. The twins had stopped catching infections, and both were excellent at writing and counting for their age. Both of them had success in sports. But now Faith could not give them the main thing: protection, life in a full and harmonious family, attention and care of the father, which cannot be replaced by anything. It made me feel very, very sick. But where to go now? Staying with Max after this conversation is even worse for all of them. Max didn't seem to want to let his wife go. He even tensed a little when he heard that she was going back to her mother's apartment. "Don't be silly," he said, with his usual sneer on his face. "Where are you going? You also dragged the kids with you. You're a housewife to the core. You're not capable of anything but spending my money. The only thing you're good at is raising children and cooking borscht. So go about your business." Vera winced painfully at these words. Max is partly right. But no, I'm wrong. It's just that he, as a more authoritative and powerful person, puts pressure on her again, tries to make her feel insignificant again. He's good at it. Vera resisted. She recalled her university successes, victories in Olympiads and competitions, excellent test scores, the words of Peter Sergeyevich that he had never had such a talented student. And my mother's opinion. At the right moment, my mother's words about Vera's very strong and integral nature came back to me from the depths of my memory. Mom was sure that her daughter would achieve everything she wanted. "I'm leaving, Max," Vera said firmly. "Tomorrow, as soon as the kids wake up." "How stupid you are!" Max clutched his head. "You're not thinking straight at all. What are you doing? Do you at least understand what kind of life awaits you and your children?" Vera could see that Max was afraid of her leaving, and she knew exactly why. He is a successful man with an impeccable reputation. Max wants to become a local MP and is already taking steps in this direction. And such a person needs a beautiful story, which can be more appropriate than an exemplary wife and 2 wonderful children. And then suddenly divorces, mistresses. All this, of course, will play against Max. That's why he's worried right now. It was nice to feel some sort of power over this man. Vera even smiled at her thoughts, which irritated her husband. "What are you so happy about, you fool?" he asked. Max hadn't been shy about expression in a long time. Vera was his grandmother, and a stupid housewife, and a stupid chicken, and now a fool in general. The woman now couldn't understand why she had endured this for so long, why she had allowed herself to be treated like this. It would have been necessary to run away from Max long ago, even if he didn't have a mistress. "You're nothing without me," the man continued. "Go away." She decided. "Well, go away, good riddance. You push around and come crawling back." Vera shook her head. There was a lot she wanted to say to Max right now, but she was afraid. She was afraid that, if she opened her mouth, she would burst into tears right in front of him. Vera didn't want to do that at all. "I didn't want to show weakness in front of this man. He would not wait for her tears. I'll do my best to keep child support to a minimum," the husband continued to rant. "You'll get a penny. Aren't you used to working? The 3 of you will starve to death. You'll come crawling up to me on your knees to beg for forgiveness. Mark my words. You're nothing like that. 0 without the wand. Empty space." Vera was silent. She stared at Max and couldn't understand how she could ever have loved this man, cruel, angry, selfish, who thought he was the king of this world and didn't care about anyone else. After all, Max behaves like this, or almost like this, with everyone. Vera has seen this happen more than once. His colleagues are stupid, his friends are fools and losers. Max alone is the perfect person. Max mistook his wife's silence for uncertainty. He continued to paint increasingly bleak prospects for Vera living independently with her children. And the man was not at all shy in his expressions. He was getting hotter and hotter, and he wanted to prove to the woman that she was nothing without him. Max seemed to genuinely believe what he was saying. Vera felt that every word of her husband was taking away her strength. Max drained the energy out of her, made her feel insignificant. Just a little more, and she believed him. To believe that she is not capable of anything without an influential, successful husband will decide that it is better to endure, but to live without knowing the need. "Shut up," Vera said suddenly, amazed at how calm and firm her own voice sounded. Max was taken aback. "What?" The man didn't understand. "I said shut up. What are you doing now? Did you make a mistake by accident or something? What kind of behavior?" "Made a mistake, but not now, much earlier. I should have run away from you a long time ago. I've known for a long time that you treat me like that. I'm treating you the way you deserve to be treated. Dissatisfied, go and try to find a jerk who will treat you differently. That's it. I'm sick of this conversation. I've decided, pack your bags and get lost. And when you come crawling up on your knees to beg for forgiveness, then we'll see how you sing." Max turned and left the apartment, slamming the door behind him. And he said goodbye that he would be back for dinner the next day. And it would be better if he did not find Vera at home. Max must have gone to see this Elena of his, because the atmosphere at home was so hot that no sparks were flying in the air just now. Vera understood that her husband had given her time to get ready. She can safely spend the night in the apartment that she has considered her home for so many years, and only then pack her things and go to her native Odnushka on the edge of the city. But the woman couldn't stay in this place any longer. Here everything reminded me of Max, his betrayal and ugly behavior. Vera thought that when she left here, it would be much easier for her. The woman was right. She really felt a semblance of calm in her mother's apartment. Here Vera was happy. Here she was truly loved and accepted. The rooms of my own apartment seemed to be imbued with some special energy. The children also felt something. They were calm and looked relaxed. "I like it here," Stiapa smiled, looking around his new home. "And me," Arina said. "Although it's cramped, it's very cozy and warm." Cozy and warm. You can't be more precise. Vera felt the same way. And a completely new life began for the small family. Vera got money for the first time, took to the pawn shop the jewelry that Max had once given her. Gold earrings, massive chains, jingling bracelets. Vera wasn't particularly fond of these heavy, expensive trinkets, but Max insisted that his wife should look respectable, especially when she was going out with him. Vera parted with her gold jewelry without regret. They didn't have the happiest memories associated with them. The jewelry was accepted at a price much lower than the purchase price, as is usually the case in pawnshops. Vera counted the not-too-thick wad of bills and sighed sadly. She had expected more. Well, at least these tsotskis are good for something. Vera immediately filed for divorce and alimony the day after the move. Max didn't even try to talk her out of it. Vera breathed a sigh of relief. She's already set up to fight. Max needs an impeccable reputation, and he doesn't need a divorce. But the man didn't say a word against it. Apparently, he already had some new plan in mind. The court awarded the father alimony as a percentage of earnings. After receiving the first transfer, Vera grinned. It was a penny. Max made good on his threat. He promised to pay minimal alimony and did so. With his connections, it's easy for him to hide his official income. Well, Vera wasn't exactly surprised. She had been looking for a job for a long time, realizing that it was unlikely that she would be able to deal only with the house and children as before. Nothing. The twins are almost schoolboys now. Vera very quickly, literally in 2 weeks, taught them to be independent. Now Arina and Stepan could warm up their own food, wash their plates, and clean their apartment. They no longer needed their mother's round-the-clock supervision. At the same time, Vera prepared the twins for kindergarten, took them to the doctors, and collected the necessary information. School's less than a year away, but that's okay. Even a few months in the garden is important for Vera because she has to go to work. The truth is the work did not stick. Vera stayed at home too long, and before the decree she managed to work just nothing. So by her 30s, the woman had not gained the experience that employers needed so much. Vera beat off the thresholds of all organizations in the city that needed translators, sent out resumes everywhere, but was rejected everywhere. The only thing that Vera needed her knowledge for was translations for students. But this income was too small and unstable to boot. Sometimes Vera had a barrage of orders, sometimes it was quiet and smooth. As a result, the woman gave up, realized that it is unlikely that she will now be able to get a job in her specialty. And Vera began to view a variety of ads. It immediately became more fun. Vera's first job in Novaya Zhizn was on the outskirts of the city. It was a huge farmer's market where a woman tried her hand at selling vegetables. It would seem that the work is the simplest: weigh vegetables for customers, announce the price, and collect money. But there were also pitfalls. The owner often scolded Vera for the fact that the vegetables evaporate too quickly. She defended herself, proving that everything was under her control. Build clear chains. Number of vegetables at the beginning of the day. Sales, revenue. Vera always had it all right. It's a trade, you know. The furious owner of a vegetable shop ran over Vera. A little underweight here, a little underweight there. One couple of spoiled onions slipped, the other crushed tomatoes planted. Customers won't notice, but will get a raise. It's not fair, Vera tried to argue. Well, where to? The owner only got angrier at such statements. Fair, not fair. She says here. It's a trade, you know. He died and decided to let me go. If you're such a fool, why did you go into the trade at all? In general, Vera had to quit. Once again, she was unemployed. Money was sorely lacking. It was a good thing that the children were now safely going to kindergarten. No endless colds and sore throats. Both twins loved their new garden. By the way, they attended the same preschool as their mother once did. Vera started looking for a job again. I didn't want to go to the sales department anymore. The woman realized that it wasn't hers. She has neither the skill nor the cunning that the owners of all these stalls need so much. But Vera took a cleaner in the HOA. Now every morning and evening she had to clean several entrances. It was very hard, physically exhausting work. Only now Vera realized how much some people are not used to preserving the cleanliness around them. What she didn't find on the stairs. Well, where was the poor woman to go? You can't live on the items that Max paid the children for. There was, of course, an option to return to her husband, but Vera did not consider it. And not because she was afraid of her husband's gloating. No, it was just that now, without Max, Vera felt free. Even if she was tired, even if she and her children had to save hard, but Vera was no longer accountable to anyone and did not try her best to please an adult picky peasant. She wasn't insulted, humiliated, or made to feel worthless and incapable of anything else. Vera was her own mistress. The children also benefited from the change of scenery. They have become more mature, serious, and independent. Now the twins tried to take care of their mother. Then they'll pour her tea, then they'll spread her cereal with milk, then they'll fix her pillow. It was very touching. Stepan and Arina saw how hard it was for their mother, felt sorry for her, tried to support her. Only caring for the children gave Vera the strength to move on. Cold water, dirty entrances, a humming back at the end of the day. It was hard for the woman, but she saw no other way out. Vera continued to search for a job in her specialty, but no one responded to her resume. Too little experience, too much experience. And then the HOA changed its management. The new broom sweeps in its own way. So the chief fired all the cleaners. I decided that it was cheaper and better to use the services of third-party cleaning companies. And Vera was out of work again. The woman was desperate. The 1st of September was approaching, and the twins had to prepare for school. Max seemed to have forgotten all about her and the children. I transferred pennies to the alimony bill and thought that everything was in order. But to ask him for help? After everything he'd said back then, Vera just couldn't. Although she understood that he was as much a father to the twins as she was a mother, and he had responsibilities for raising children that he had been masterfully avoiding lately. Help came from a place where Vera wasn't expecting it. Svetka, the same childhood friend, knowing about Vera's plight, suggested her candidacy to her friend. She had a small yard shop from the from and to series, and household chemicals were sold there, and products, a little of everything. Vera was afraid to go back to trading, remembering her past experience. But there was no time to think about the word at all. Everything turned out to be much simpler than in the case of the vegetable market. No one needed to be overweight or shortchanged. Vera, after the work of a cleaner, the work of a salesman seemed like paradise, and the salary turned out to be quite good. Her faith was revived again. Now she's going to get her son and daughter ready for school. Yes, it was hard for Vera. Work, savings on everything, trouble with children. Vera denied herself many things, and yet she never once regretted leaving her husband. The only thing she sometimes felt sad about was her ruined career. After all, everything started out so well for Vera. She worked in a large travel company, received good money. They appreciated it and were ready to promote it. But I had to give up my job in favor of my children and my husband. And that's what it all led to. Was it worth studying for 5 years at the university to work in a small yard shop? A person without an education would have been able to handle it. One evening, a tall, elderly man came into the store. The doorbell rang. Vera, who was thinking about something important at that moment, involuntarily shuddered and fixed her gaze on the visitor. A familiar face. It's a look, it's a walk. Vera froze. She suddenly recognized her university teacher, Professor Pyotr Sergeyevich. It was he who once predicted a great future for a talented student, if only Pyotr Sergeyevich did not recognize her. Vera was somehow ashamed to meet this man. No, Vera did not see anything shameful in the profession of a salesman, just Pyotr Sergeyevich, he believed in her so much, was so happy about her success. The professor gave one of the most promising students a lot of important and wise advice. He put a piece of his soul into her in the hope that one day the student would surpass the teacher. Pyotr Sergeyevich helped her get her first job, and she, Vera, so incompetently disposed of her opportunities and abilities. Pyotr Sergeyevich carefully ran his eyes over the shelves. He was obviously looking for something. In a good way, Vera should have asked how she could help him. But the woman, hiding in the shadow of the refrigerator, she said nothing. I don't think he'll recognize her now. Vera got fat and matured. It doesn't look the same as it did 10 years ago. Then Vera was just a little girl, naive, big-eyed, curious. And what has life done to her now? Finally, Pyotr Sergeyevich found what he needed. He picked up a bottle of olive oil from the shelf and headed for the cash register. Vera shrank into a tight ball. Her heart was pounding so hard that it seemed to be audible even in the street. The professor walked over to the clerk and handed her his purchase. Hello. He greeted her politely and even smiled. But Pyotr Sergeyevich did not recognize her. I haven't found out yet. He was so friendly with everyone, a pleasant way of communicating. Good afternoon, Vera stammered. And here. Then the professor looked at her face carefully. Vera watched his reaction. Pyotr Sergeyevich was clearly trying to remember how he knew this saleswoman. Faith. The older man finally said, I'm not sure. He was still very doubtful. But don't deny it. Vera nodded silently. Well, what are you doing here? The professor was surprised. How come you work as a salesperson? With your abilities. Vera herself did not notice how she laid out everything to Pyotr Sergeyevich. He might have been in a hurry, but the man didn't show it. The professor carefully listened to every word of his former student, never interrupting her. And Vera, to her surprise, realized that she had long wanted to share her story with someone. The woman talked about the difficult relationship with her husband, about his betrayal, about the divorce, about surviving with 2 small children, and her heart was amazingly relieved. Vera felt Pyotr Sergeyevich's silent support and sympathy. Well, life didn't spare you, of course, Pyotr Sergeyevich summed up when Vera fell silent. But it doesn't have to be that way. People like you should work by profession, and that's the only way. By profession, they don't take it anymore. Vera spread her hands. Experience is not enough. The break in experience is long. So I sometimes make transfers for students for a small fee when I have time. for the soul, and so that the skill is not lost. Here is such a fate is visible. Fate, the professor mused. Fate probably arranged our meeting today, as well. I just happened to be in this area by accident. I got off at the wrong bus stop. I decided to walk home, and on the way I came here, and here you are. Yes, it was interesting. Vera smiled. She was no longer shy about the professor. He clearly understood her desperate situation and even felt sorry for the former student. On the contrary, Vera was now enjoying this meeting. She again communicated with the smart and intelligent Pyotr Sergeyevich. He listened patiently and encouraged her, and with another look, Pyotr Sergeyevich reminded Vera of the happy times when she was a talented and promising student with a great future ahead of her. Vera suddenly remembered that she was smart, gifted, capable, and hardworking. First Max, and then the circumstances of her life connected with the divorce, made her forget about it. Vera felt like a non-entity, blamed herself for everything that could be done. But she's not like that. It's completely different. The professor reminded her of this. In general, so, Pyotr Sergeyevich said confidently and energetically, I just can't get past this one of situations. My nephew is the founder of the company Auntie. She is engaged in buying and selling real estate abroad. Of course, I know this company. Vera smiled. Wow, I didn't even think that its owner was your nephew. I thought it was someone from abroad. No, my nephew organized it. Pyotr Sergeyevich smiled a little proudly. And I even helped him a little bit at some points. But he's a milkman himself. He's always been like that. Would you like to work for them? Yes, I filled up their HR department with resumes. There was no response. I even called to find out what was going on. The answer by phone is standard. There is little experience, a long break in experience, and the work itself requires high qualifications. Becoming an employee of Antea is my impossible dream. It's unprofitable, Pyotr Sergeyevich said energetically. Of course, your resume does not look the best, but they are employees of the Human Resources Department. They don't know you as a person, as a talented translator, as a person. Yes, Andrei will thank me later for such an employee. Pyotr Sergeyevich asked Vera for her phone number. The woman's voice was trembling with excitement as she dictated the numbers. She still couldn't believe it, couldn't believe that her life was about to change so dramatically. Only Vera could not imagine that everything would be even more incredible and amazing than it was even possible to imagine. Pyotr Sergeyevich kept his promise. The very next day, Vera received a call from Auntie and was invited to an interview. Vera was as nervous as if she was facing the most important exam of her life. She was afraid to show herself not at her best, afraid to set up Pyotr Sergeyevich, who vouched for her. But the interview was successful. Vera effortlessly coped with the tasks that a strict-looking interviewer offered her. The woman could tell by the reaction of the interviewer that she was happy and even a little surprised. We'll call you back soon, she smiled warmly at the applicant. And Vera left Antaeus fully convinced that this would be the case. This is not the usual excuse like the common phrase we'll call you back if anything happens, but a promise to contact the applicant for the position as soon as possible. As soon as Vera saw Auntie's office, she knew it was her place. She liked everything here. The setting, the working atmosphere, even future colleagues who looked enthusiastic and inspired. A dream job. Vera got a call back. They told me what documents you need to get to the office with and when to start working. There was no limit to the woman's happiness. What if Pyotr Sergeyevich hadn't recognized her? Or did he not go into a small yard shop that he met on his way by pure chance? I didn't want to think about it now. Vera liked her work, and so did the team. Now the woman arrived at the office in an elegant suit, sat down at the desk, turned on the computer, and plunged into her element. She translated complex texts of documents and announcements into understandable Russian, corresponded with foreign clients, and sometimes answered calls. At first, colleagues were wary of the newcomer. Only the best of the best got into the Anthea. Real professionals worked here, but here is a woman with no experience from the street. As one of watchmen admitted, people were afraid that to them in departments again, they slipped a thug, for which everyone will have to work. This has already happened a couple of times. But Vera quickly showed that she came here to work. The woman also managed to help others, for which she won universal approval and acceptance. The first salary gave Vera a slight shock. She understood, of course, that Anthea's employees were getting good money, but she hadn't even expected such a salary. She was almost giddy with joy. Vera immediately decided that this evening she would arrange a real holiday for herself and her children. The hard times are clearly over. And then there was the New Year's corporate party, where Vera finally saw her boss for the first time, the same Andrei, the nephew of Pyotr Sergeyevich, whom the elderly professor raised as a son. Vera had only been working in Antea for a couple of months by then. All this time Andrei was on a long business trip. And now, on New Year's Eve, he's back. Outwardly, he did not resemble Pyotr Sergeyevich in any way. The professor was tall and thin, fair-haired and blue-eyed, while Andrei was short but broad-shouldered, dark-eyed, and swarthy. He looked like an Italian, just as smiling, energetic, and outgoing. Vera kept thinking about how to approach Andrei and thank him for giving her the job. But he noticed a new employee and came over to meet her. I talked to her like that all evening. It turned out that they look at many things in the same way. They love the same movies, listen to the same music, and even dream of something similar. It was amazing. Vera was talking to Andrei for the first time, but she had the feeling that she had known him all her life, and the man felt the same way. He told Vera so himself. Vera was even dizzy from everything that was happening. For some reason, she immediately trusted Andrei unconditionally. A woman has not felt beautiful, desirable, attractive for so long, and then suddenly this man. So reliable, so strong, so influential. He looks at her as if his happiness depends on her. Lara did not think that something serious would come out of their sudden outburst of sympathy. Still, why would such a man need a divorcee with 2 children? He can find himself a completely free beauty, younger, more beautiful, without a past. There must be hundreds of them hanging around him. But Andrew, from the moment they met, clearly hadn't noticed anyone else. They started dating. The initiator of this relationship, of course, was Andrei. Vera was happy. She liked his confidence, perseverance. The man quickly found a common language with the twins, who were always genuinely happy to meet Andrei. And he tried to surprise them more often. Then I took them to rides, then to some amazing amusement parks. Unlike Max, he was always genuinely interested in the opinion of the other half. Vera felt really happy. Pyotr Sergeyevich rejoiced at their union. He said that now he was completely calm about his nephew, and for Arina and Stepan, the elderly professor had become a grandfather, kind, attentive, and wise. Recently, Andrei proposed to Vera. This is not to say that this was a complete surprise for a woman. This is exactly the event that Vera and Andrei came to celebrate in the restaurant today. They dropped Arina and Stepan off at Pyotr Sergeyevich's on the way. He was always happy to have the opportunity to interact with the children. And in the restaurant, Max. Hooray, pompous, in a stylish, expensive suit, he rants with a wine glass in his hands. Next to him is a young blonde beauty, the same Elena with a photo from her phone. They probably live together in their apartment now, but the girl doesn't look happy at all. An extinct look, timid movements with an eye on your d'étoile. And in the photo, Elena seemed so bold, so bold. Did Max manage to suppress this bright bird as well? What a dangerous man he is. Vera did not take her eyes off her ex-husband. And he finally felt that gaze and turned in her direction. Confusion. There was a moment of confusion in his narrowed eyes. He hadn't expected to see his ex in such an expensive establishment. The couple did not communicate. But Max probably knew from some mutual friends that Vera was in trouble. Perhaps the man was still waiting for her to come crawling to him to beg for help. Well, now he knows that's not going to happen. Andrei, realizing what was going on, offered Vera to leave several times, but Vera, surprisingly, felt calm. She even liked that Max saw her like this beautiful, successful, with a loving companion. Max still bought a moment to get closer to his ex-wife. Vera went to the ladies' room to fix her makeup. Max must have noticed and followed her. Well, hello, little wife. The man grinned as he caught up with her in the hall. Hello. Vera smiled charmingly. This man no longer had any power over her. Absolutely none. I see you've settled in well, Max continued in an unctuous voice. How unpleasant, predatory, insincere he is. I didn't expect you to be so quick, I admit. Like a modest mother hen, but so well settled. I found myself a rich sucker. Well done. Max clearly wanted to hurt Vera. He was trying again to humiliate her, to show her that his ex-wife was nothing in her own right. The woman smiled at Max's pathetic attempt. He doesn't know yet, doesn't even know that she's different. This kind of thing won't work with her anymore. I didn't find a rich guy. I found myself. Can you tell the difference? Max blinked in surprise, unable to find an answer. Vera calmly continued on her way.